While we're still waiting for Indiana Jones to find the Fountain of Youth or something like that, animals, however, don't need to search far and wide for this ability. Some of them already have it, and these are the animals that we're going to be talking about today. To an ever-resilient insect to something that's probably truly immortal, here are 10 animals that can live after death. Number 10. Cockroaches. Let's start out with something really obvious, shall we? Cockroaches are infamous for their tenacity, and are often cited as the most likely survivors of a nuclear war. And, get this, they can even survive without their heads. Cockroaches can go on living for weeks, and that's because of their amazing biology. Let's talk about it and understand why they can keep running around with their heads chopped off while we humans can't. First of all, we humans bleed. The tiniest cut can make us bleed, and much more chopping our heads off, of course. For cockroaches, though, bleeding out isn't really a problem. This is thanks to their open circulatory system. They barely have any blood pressure, if any at all. So if their head is lopped off, the wound just closes naturally due to clotting. And secondly, and probably obviously, human heads hold quite a bit of important parts of our body, our brains, and a few other things as well. And needless to say, without this lump of gray matter, we'd all cease to function. However, cockroaches don't need their heads to breathe, as they do this process through little holes located on their bodies called spiracles. Although a headless cockroach will die of starvation eventually, it's gonna take weeks for them to do so. Number 9. Turtles. Did you know that the hearts of fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals alike have their own pacemaker cells? These cells actually take over when the signals of the brainstem stop for whatever reason. This makes sure that the heart continues to function even if the brain does not, at least for a little while. In the case of turtles, for a while it means a very long time. In fact, to a turtle's heart, being cut off from the oxygen and nutrients usually supplied by the blood is basically a daily occurrence. That's because despite being air breathers, turtles can die for long periods of time. How long, you might ask? Well, in the case of the musk loggerhead turtle, about 5,000 hours in one go. They survive that long by what oxygen they can take up from the water via their skin, throat, and butt end, as well as their body's amazing potential for producing energy without oxygen. Their hearts have their own fuel stashes, and they just won't give up until every last drop of that's been used up. Number 8. The octopus. Thinking about eating live octopus? First of all, you're a monster. And secondly, I suggest you change your mind if you value your life. These guys are so tenacious that even if they're chopped to bits, they could still do a lot of damage and possibly even kill you. They have this zombie-like ability because their central nervous system is quite unique. 2/3 of their brain cells are not in the brain where you would expect them to be, but rather in their tentacles. And these tentacles can continue reacting to stimuli even after they're no longer connected to the main brain. In fact, they remain responsive even after the octopus has been long dead and the arms severed. Some have even been seen still moving after a week of being chopped off. Number 7. Chickens. I'm sure you've already heard that chickens can still run around even if their heads are chopped off. And if you go ask any farmer, they'll tell you that it's absolutely true. There is a very simple reason for this, and it's not because chickens will be the catalyst for the zombie apocalypse. It's actually chalked up to human error. A butcher's error, to be more specific. You see, a chicken's central nervous system is extremely different from what we have. Some basic bodily functions are governed not by the brain itself, but by certain parts of the brain stem. So what does this have to do with zombie chickens? Well, if a butcher chops a chicken's head too high, most of the time it's just the forebrain of the chicken that comes off with its head, leaving the brain stem and the cerebellum quite untouched. In fact, if the butcher also misses the jugular, not only will the chicken continue to move, it can sometimes still breathe. Of course, it's eventually going to starve to death, and those are special cases. One special case was Headless Mike, a chicken owned by farmer Lloyd Olson in Fruita, Colorado, who actually survived for 18 months without his head. Why'd you let him go on that long there, Olson? It's a little cruel. Number 6. Flies. David Blaine has this trick where he brings apparently dead flies back to life. This isn't because the magician really has supernatural powers, but rather it's how the fly copes with being frozen. Flies can survive freezing temperatures and go into some kind of suspended animation. What David is actually doing is thawing the frozen fly using his own body heat. When the fly itself fully thaws, it then flies away. Amazing indeed, but this isn't the reason why flies make it onto this list. Believe it or not, female flies can survive for several days without their heads. Such beheaded females assume an upright stance, comparable to that of a normal fly. They can also engage in complex actions, such as preening, flying, really basically anything that a normal-headed fly does. Except for eating, of course. Even more amazingly, males will court decapitated females. Yeah, that's right. Chop off a female fly's head and not much changes, really. If anything, it serves to make flies' behavior more human-like. The males still want to have sex with her, while she in turn treats their sexual advances as noxious foreign stimuli. And you know, maybe if the other flies would put on some deodorant, just saying. Number 5. Frogs. There's only one reason why frogs made it onto this list, and that's because it's been discovered that frogs continue to move around even when they're brain dead. Or to put it more accurately, after its brain has been scooped out of its skull. Pretty impressive on its own, but let's face it, there's only so much any creature without a brain can do. So how do brainless frogs act? Well, like any normal frog, or rather like almost any normal frog, a headed but brainless frog actually behaves very similarly to a frog with its gray matter perfectly intact. If you turn it upside down, it'll right itself. If you pinch its feet, it'll hop away. You put it in water, it'll swim to the side and climb out. And perhaps most disturbing of all, it'll even croak contentedly if you stroke its back. The factor that results in frogs' zombie-like tendencies is the power of the reflex reaction, which fires the necessary electrical impulses that cause a muscle to expand or contract. So there you go. That's a thing you probably didn't know before. Number 4. Bees. Bees don't live forever. Period. In fact, I think they're still kinda dying off, so try to save them, please. We kinda need them. Their genes don't hold the key to eternal life. Their lives are as fragile as the rest of us. But there's one specific reason why bees appear on this list, because even though a bee is dead, it still inflicts a lot of pain, and in some cases even cause fatalities. However, it's not in the way you'd think, of course. Dead bees obviously don't go fly around and actively sting you. It's that their stinging parts, and more importantly, their venom delivery system, will still work even if the bee is long dead. When a bee stings, the sting detaches from its body, leaving it embedded into the skin of its victim. Attached to the sting is a tiny organ that both contains the bee venom and a tiny muscle that pumps the venom out. Due to the simple physiology of bees, these actions are not controlled by the bee's simple brain, but rather by involuntary impulses. So if you're thinking that a dead bee is a harmless bee, you better think again. Number 3. Salamanders. If you're gonna come up with a list of animals that stubbornly cling to life even after its apparent death, then the salamander should be a shoo-in. This animal has always been synonymous with long life and immortality. It's even revered by people who believe in magic, with the salamander's amazing regenerative abilities considered nothing short of paranormal. Salamanders have the amazing ability to regenerate any part of its body that's been cut off. More amazingly, these regrown parts actually function the same as, or in some cases, even better than the original parts. This is mainly because of a special protein found in salamanders which enables the replication of cells. This protein can also be found in humans, but in smaller quantities, and they help us heal from our wounds. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today's pick is an animal that is extremely terrifying when alive. If you're an Arizonan like me, then you know you still gotta fear this thing when it's dead. Find out which animal I'm talking about next with number 2. Snakes. Let's get this out of the way first. When a snake dies, it stays dead, no matter what. But why is it included in this list then? Simple, because even when it's dead, especially the venomous ones, it can still kill you. You've probably heard that the best way to kill a snake is to chop its head off. While that's probably true, there's one key element missing there, and that's to make sure you dispose of the severed head properly by burying it, and make sure to never ever touch that severed head with your bare hands. A snake's head is a vessel for its fangs and the deadly poison sacs. In other words, all the dangerous parts really, and they still have the ability to bite you and deliver deadly venom even though it's no longer attached to the rest of its body. The snake has heat-sensitive pits at either side of its face, which it uses to detect threats. And let's face it, if you're close enough for your body heat to be detected, you're close enough to be considered a threat. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Number 1. Flatworms. There's this old legend about earthworms. It says that if you cut an earthworm in half, 2 earthworms will form from the severed halves. Of course, everyone knows this simply isn't true. However, substitute the earthworm with a flatworm, and then this old wives' tale suddenly becomes a true story. Flatworms, or planarians, are known as masters of regeneration. They can rebuild any part of their bodies after amputation. If one is cut in half, the head portion grows a tail and the tail portion grows a head. If you cut it into 20 pieces, you're gonna get 20 new worms, each an exact copy of the very first that are created. This has been exploited by Nottingham University scientists who have created a colony of more than 20,000 worms, all from one original, whose bodies and organs do not appear to age. They're confident that a single worm which did not divide would live forever, unless it catches an infection or another illness. Would you like to have the ability to live after death? Let us know down below in the comments. Also make sure to hit subscribe as well as the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time we upload new and amazing content just like this. Again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Later, everybody!